The first update we have today is the brief on Lisa Barlow's response to fan criticism over spending cash on RHSLC. Okay, so on a recent Real Housewives of Salt Lake City episode, Lisa Barlow was seen, flashing this big wad of $100 bills. And, well, you know how fans are. They immediately started comparing it to what happened with Teresa Giudice. Remember how she was always waving cash around right before, that whole fraud thing that landed her in prison for 11 months? Yeah. So yeah, people on X kind of went after Lisa, who's 50, for showing off all that cash. Fans were pretty quick to link it to Teresa, who's 53. But Lisa, she jumped right in to defend herself. She explained, hey, it was just tip money. Apparently, she used it to thank Heather Gay, bought her some gifts. Lisa insisted it was no big deal and told fans, basically, not to worry about it. But, not everyone's buying it. One fan pointed out, tip money? You don't usually hold it out long enough for the cameras to get multiple shots while you're talking about it, right? And then, of course, someone brought up Jenn Shaw. Remember, she's currently in prison. She's 52. So the warnings started rolling in. One person even specifically mentioned, watch out, it could be Lisa or maybe even Dorit Kemsley facing something similar. Lisa shut that down pretty quick, though. She was like, look, I'm totally transparent financially. And just to prove it, she mentioned she's got 3 Amex cards and a Chase Sapphire card, too. Before we get into the next update, I need to check in with you all. If you're enjoying our little tea session, take a millisecond to hit the like button and subscribe to join the best reality TV community on YouTube. Done? Let's move on to next update now.
Next, we are going to talk about the return of Erika Jayne to the DJ decks. So Erika Jayne is jumping back into her music career, specifically as DJ Pretty Mess. And yeah, this is all happening while, her legal challenges are still very much developing. She actually announced this next phase, this comeback, right around October 22nd, basically saying she's back at the decks. And her first scheduled gig? It's going to be as DJ Pretty Mess down at Palm Springs Pride for the Saturday night at Find Your GPS party. Now, Erika talks about music being her constant, kind of like her first love, her escape. She traces it all back, through her career, even mentioning that time she first officially stepped behind the decks. That was back in 2018 at Coachella for the Jeremy Scott Ex Moschino event. She spun alongside some big names then, like Diplo and A-Track. Apparently that spark she felt, well, it's burning bright again, bringing her right back here. But yeah, like I said, this whole career move is happening right in the middle of some pretty significant legal stuff. It's continuing to mount, actually. She recently lost the SLAP appeal in that $18 million lawsuit filed against her by a designer. And at the same time, there are ongoing negotiations in that major $25 million lawsuit, you know the one, filed against her by Tom Girardi's bankruptcy trustee. That one's currently expected to go to trial on February 10th, 2026. Oh, and interestingly, Erika isn't the only Real Housewives star pursuing DJing right now. Meredith Marks is also a DJ, and she's even going on tour this year. So this was today's update about Erika Jayne. Let's now move on to next update.
Next, we are going to talk about the latest report concerning Teresa Giudice and her alleged attempts to secure a spot for season 15 of The Real Housewives of New Jersey. So Teresa has been talking publicly about maybe reuniting with her brother Joe Gorga and sister-in-law Melissa Gorga, right? Well, a new report kind of illuminates what might really be going on behind the scenes, some alleged strategic moves to make sure she's back on RHO&J. Apparently, the story goes that Teresa first reached out to her cousin Kathy Wakile, former cast member, well before she even tried contacting Joe and Melissa. And the thinking, allegedly, was if she could make up with Kathy, it'd give her a storyline, right? And an ally against Joe and Melissa, playing on Kathy's past issues with Melissa. But that didn't quite work out. The source says Kathy basically said no thanks, didn't want back in. So only after that plan failed, the report suggests, did Teresa pivot to trying to reconcile with Joe and Melissa. Insiders are apparently looking at this like it seems kind of desperate, Like the Gorgas were maybe the last resort on her list. And even with all this effort, producers have supposedly made it clear they aren't interested in filming some big reconciliation attempt. Nope. They apparently need Joe and Teresa to already be good before they'd potentially bring them both back. As for the Gorgas, Joe confirmed he got a text from Teresa, but apparently wants her to really, beg for forgiveness. And Melissa? She's reportedly playing along, maybe because she's worried about her own spot if Teresa comes back and they're still fighting. So this was today's update about Teresa Giudice's alleged RHO&J maneuvering. Let's now move on to the next update.
Next, we are going to talk about the recent revelations from Alexis Bellino, who claims she disinvited Jenn Pedranti from her wedding to John Jansen. Apparently, this all came down to Shannon Beador's influence and what Alexis describes as a pattern of Jenn ghosting her. It really illuminates how quickly their friendship fell apart, and those tricky loyalty conflicts that popped up around the wedding. So what happened was Jenn seemed to be trying to respect Shannon Beador's feelings about Alexis's fiancé, John Jansen. And yeah, it's complicated because, as you might know, Shannon and John used to be serious, and later he actually sued her for $75,000. So definitely some bad blood there. Now, Alexis points to how Jenn allegedly started pulling away. She says they used to talk frequently, even had a 25-minute call in May when Alexis was dealing with some wedding gown drama. But right after Alexis sent out save the dates that same month, she says Jenn just stopped responding for 3 whole weeks. But the final straw? That came about 5 months before the wedding. Alexis had to go in for emergency surgery because of a ruptured implant. Pretty scary stuff. And Alexis claims Jenn didn't reach out, didn't check up on her for 4 days. That's when Alexis says she sent the text, disinviting Jenn, who was apparently shocked. Alexis basically told her this silence just showed she was distancing herself because Shannon was in her ear. So this was today's update about the ongoing drama between Alexis Bellino and Jenn Pedranti. Let's now move on to the next update.
Next, we are going to talk about Wendy Osefo's strategy in her current legal battle. So, Wendy and her husband, Eddie Osefo, they're facing these pretty serious charges. We're talking insurance fraud, conspiracy fraud, and making a false statement to a police officer. This all stems from that alleged fake robbery at their home back in April 2024. Okay, so what's Wendy doing? Well, legally, she's making some big moves. First off, she's asked the court to sever the trials. Basically, she wants her defense heard completely separate from her husband, Eddie. And interestingly, Eddie doesn't actually have a lawyer listed in his case right now, so, his whole defense strategy is a bit unclear. But Wendy and her team, they're going further. They're actively trying to get all the charges thrown out. They're claiming there were defects in the charging document, and they also want all the evidence suppressed, arguing it came from an unlawful search or seizure. Wendy's even claiming her arrest was illegal. Now, this whole approach, it kind of illuminates what happened with Karen Hooger just about a year before Wendy filed these documents. Remember Karen's 2024 DUI charge? She also tried to get it dismissed based on a legal technicality. Her lawyer argued back then that she wasn't read her Miranda warnings before being interrogated, suggesting she incriminated herself during, an illegal search and seizure. It is important to clarify, though, Karen ultimately spent 6 months behind bars for that DUI. So this was today's update about Wendy Osefo's legal strategy. Let's now move on to next update.
Next, we are going to talk about the serious legal trouble facing Aaron Phypers, Denise Richards' estranged husband, especially these allegations of witness intimidation related to alleged abuse. So this all comes after that recent restraining order hearing where Denise was trying to make her temporary order against him permanent. Well, things have definitely escalated into a formal criminal case now. Prosecutors filed a criminal complaint in Los Angeles back on October 15th, and Aaron Phypers was actually arrested just 2 days later. He's now charged with 4 felonies, 2 counts related to injuring Denise, and 2 counts for allegedly dissuading a witness using force or threats. He did post a $200,000 bond and was released, okay? Now, one of those witness dissuasion charges, it involves his own cousin, Kathleen McAllister, who, used to work at his wellness center. Phypers is accused of threatening her to basically stop her from talking about abuse she allegedly witnessed. And Kathleen did testify during that earlier hearing. She recounted an alleged incident, described it as an evening of chaos and arguing, where she says she saw Aaron hit Denise, leaving her with a really bad black eye. Just for context, Denise's original restraining order request back in July mentioned this alleged assault, saying Aaron hit her in the eye with his palm because he apparently suspected potted plants had been bugged. Crazy, right? Kathleen apparently witnessed this and got frozen foods to help with the swelling. So yeah, right now, Phypers is facing the possibility of years in prison because these felony charges are pretty serious. So this was today's update about the charges against Aaron Phypers. Let's now move on to next update.
Next, we are going to talk about Kim Zolciak confirming her romance with Kyle Mowitz. So, Kim actually made her relationship with businessman Kyle Mowitz Instagram official back on October 22nd, 2025. And yeah, this confirmation kind of comes right as there's been talk, about her maybe being involved in his big $100 million divorce from his estranged wife, Jillian Green. When a fan asked, Kim confirmed she and Kyle have actually been together for almost 2 years now. Apparently, it started right after her very first date following her divorce filing from Kroy Berman back in May 2023. She talked about feeling this unique connection, saying they really get each other because they both went through the exact same situation, which, helps them connect and be vulnerable together. Kim also gave some updates on her family. She touched on her daughter, Ariana Byerman, regarding Ariana's recent split from Hudson McLaury, assuring fans that her daughter is living her life authentically and, well, what you see is what you get. And she also confirmed she's reconciled with her estranged parents, Karen and Joe Zolciak, saying, life is way too short for continued conflict. She even reflected a bit on that messy separation from Kroy, described it as a very long, painful, hard, and sad road, but ultimately felt it was the best for me. Because in the end, she finally chose me and my kids. And when someone asked how she stays positive through it all, Kim listed God, her kids, her family, and her best friends as her main support system. So this was today's update about Kim Zolciak's relationship status and life changes. Let's now move on to the next update.
Next, we're going to talk about Jeff Lewis and what he's saying about that split between Mercedes' MJ Javid and Tommy fight. MJ filed for divorce, after 7 years. And Jeff, who's been friends with MJ forever, talked about it on his radio show. He basically said anyone who knows them kind of saw this coming. He really thinks it's the best move for MJ and, their son Shams, who's 6 now. Jeff confirmed MJ's going for full custody, just with visitation rights for Tommy. And Lewis, he's totally backing her up on that. He talked about how marriage takes work, right? Like both people need to be all in, equally committed. He kind of implied MJ really tried every possible way to sort things out, maybe suggesting Tommy wasn't quite matching that effort. He also stressed how important it is for couples to be on the same page about work ethic. Interestingly, Jeff thinks this whole thing could actually be good for Tommy too. Like, it might just be the kick that he needs to stand on his own feet, maybe find some more work, be a good role model for their son. So far, things seem pretty civil, kind of friendly even. But Jeff also gave a warning, He said that dynamic can change fast once money gets involved or when it really hits one person that it's actually over, like the door's closed for good. And looking ahead for MJ, she's actually set to be in that new Persian-themed spin-off of The Valley pretty soon, alongside Gulnisa Gigi Garachadagi and Reza Farahàn.